to welcome you all to this first lecture of week 10 of ICS 104. So before we proceed, are there any questions? Are there any questions on lists or tuples that we covered last time? Okay, very good. طيب, so let me share the screen and let us now go into another data structure, another type of data structure, which is basically called dictionary. Okay. So what is a dictionary? Well, a dictionary is a container that keeps associations between keys and values. Okay, that keeps associations between keys and values. So basically, every key in the dictionary has an associated value. Every key in the dictionary has an associated value. For example, we can have these keys here, like Romeo, Adam, Eve, and Juliet, and the values are the colors, green, red, and blue. So whenever we do something like this, this is basically called a dictionary. This is basically called a dictionary. Now, notice here that keys are unique, but a value may be associated with several keys. Okay, so so you can see here, for example, that the keys Romeo, Adam, John, Sam, they should all be distinct. Okay, they should all be different. Whereas the values can be repeated. Like, for example, Adam has the value red, and Sam has the value, red. Okay, and Sam has the value red. And as you can see, how did I specify the dictionary? I specify the dictionary using the curly bracket. Okay, the open curly bracket, and it ends with a closed curly bracket. Do you know where do we use these brackets? Do you remember seeing them sometime in your life?
The set in math.
In math, in sets, yeah. Right? In sets. Well, by the way, now maybe I mentioned this before, but you can read about sets on your own. But basically, we will not cover sets. We will be more interested in dictionaries. But a dictionary is kind of a form of a set, because there is no concept of ordering of these value pairs. Okay, they are not quote unquote ordered. Okay, it's not like a list. Okay, it's not like a list which has the first element, second element, third element, right? Right. So if I want to print, if I want to run this code, as you can see, it will print a dictionary as a key and a value, which is separated by a column. Okay, and each pair is separated by a comma. Each pair is separated by a comma. So the dictionary structure is also known as a map, because it maps a unique key to a value, right? So for example, you can try this, on your own. That if you define like red, green, blue, and assign it to colors, this is of type a set, right? That we did not cover, right? But when we define favorite colors, we see that we are defining a key value pair. Okay, we call it a key value pair. If you just define curly brackets, close and open, close, without anything in between, this is by default an empty dictionary. It's not even an empty set. By default, this is an empty dictionary. Okay. Right. Okay. So how do I create a dictionary? Well, we have seen that a dictionary is created where each key value pair is separated by a colon. The collection of key value pairs are enclosed in braces, right? Note that when the braces contain key value pairs, they denote a dictionary. Otherwise, if it contains elements separated by commas, it is considered as a set. It's considered as a set. The only ambiguous case is, as I mentioned, when you have an empty, open curly bracket and closed curly bracket. In that case, by default, it's a dictionary, an empty dictionary, okay? It's an empty dictionary. Okay, so if I run this, you will notice that this will create a dictionary, which is called contact, which consists of, a value and a key and a value, 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 okay? Now, how can I duplicate a copy of a dictionary? Do you remember how did we duplicate a copy of the list? What did we say regarding copying a list?
List, then open brackets, contact.
That's list, and then open bracket, and then the variable that contains the reference to the list. This will copy the list. In exactly the same way, I can copy the dictionary, but instead of using list, I will use dict, right? D-I-C-T. So the dict function will replicate the copy of the dictionary. So I will have basically, in this case, I will have two dictionaries, right? So if I do this, you will see that I have defined another copy of the dictionary content. I have defined another copy of the dictionary content. Right. So how do I access a value in a dictionary? Well, just as you might expect, we will basically use the open bracket or open square bracket, closed square bracket, and between them, what are we going to put? What are we going to put in between?
The name?
The key. Huh?
Yeah.
We are going to put the key. So, for example, if I define contact to be like this, and then I will say print Bob's number is, and then I will say contact Bob. Okay, I will say contact Bob. Then what will happen is it will go to the key Bob. Well, there is a key Bob, and then it will, get the content of or the value that's associated with that key, right? So in this case, it will print, the 3841212. واضح يا شباب؟
Doctor,
نعم.
if I want the key using the value, how can I do that?
We will see that later on using the function values. We will see that at the towards the end.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. طيب. Okay. Now, based on what we have seen so far, can somebody tell me the one similarity and one difference between list and dictionary?
Maybe the similarity is when you say that contacts equal like this dictionary, and then A equal contacts, the A and contacts will have the same address.
The A and contacts will have the same address. Okay, this is a very interesting and nice similarity. So basically, contacts, it's just like, the definition of a list. It does not contain, it's not like packed with values. It's basically a reference to the, to the memory location which contains the key value pairs, right? Just like a variable, a list variable is basically a reference, to the memory location that contains the members of the list. The members of the list. طيب, what else? See, if I say that a list is a special form of a dictionary, how can you explain this to me? A list is a special form of a dictionary.
The list is a dictionary that its key is equal to its value.
Exactly. The key is equal to its index. Huh?
Yes.
So the keys in lists are indices, and they are automatically generated. You don't have to worry about, you don't have to specify them. Huh? So the first element is basically has index 0. The second element has index 1. The third element has index 2. The fourth element has index 3, and so on and so forth. Whereas the keys in dictionaries are explicit. The keys in dictionaries are explicit. Actually, you can try it home. You can, instead of putting like strings here, you can say, for example, 0, 1, 2, 3, and it will act like a list, right? It will act like a list. You will put contact 0, contact 1, contact 2, etc. So in that sense, they are similar. Like, what about differences? Well, basically, in my opinion, the main difference is that the way the list is built actually, has order in it, right? You know that this is the first element, this is the second element, this is the third element. Whereas in the dictionary, that's not the case. In the dictionary, that's not the case. So, for example, in the dictionary, I can say here, for example, this is 5, and then this is 3, and then this is 0, and then this is 1, and then this is 2. If I want to simulate kind of the list, but there is no concept. I mean, this will not be the first key value pair, right? No, خلاص, I will access it by the key. Whether it is here, whether it is in the end, I will access it by the key. Okay, so that's kind of the like a comparison between lists and dictionary. Okay, طيب.
Doctor,
نعم.
here in the open bracket contact, open bracket Bob. If I write, can I write the endings for Bob to write the numbers?
What do you mean the endings of Bob?
The index. I mean,
The
like
index. There is no index.
Uh,
There is no index. That's what I'm saying. There is no order. The dictionaries do not have any order. This is not the third element. No, this is basically the key Bob and the value. If you want to access this value, you have to know this key. This is all what we know about dictionaries. Okay. So in order to answer this question, are the key value pairs of the dictionary ordered? The answer is the pairs are not ordered. Okay, the pairs are not ordered. The key and the value, yes, the key comes to the left of the column, and the value comes to the right of the column. These are ordered. But as far as the key value pairs, they are not ordered. I can define contact. Contact 2, for example, which is equal to, and then I can, start with Sarah here. And then continue with the rest. Now, how would contact and contact 2 be different? Well, there is no difference. If you provide contact and any key here, it will give you the exact same value that you do it here. The only difference might be in maybe the order in which we are going to process the element if we, for example, have it as part of a for loop. That's it. Okay? Right. So a value can only be accessed using its associated keys. So note that the key supplied to the subscript operator must be a valid key in the dictionary. Otherwise, a key error exception will be raised. Otherwise, a key error exception will be raised. So that's why it is recommended that if you would like to access a specific key to retrieve its value, you better first make sure that the key exists in the dictionary. You first make sure that the key exists in the dictionary, right? So for example, if we run this code, and if I specify Mary as the contact that I would like to get the phone number, then it will come here and it will check that, well, Mary is a key in the contact, and therefore it will get the phone number. Whereas if I specify another name which does not exist in the dictionary, it will say, this person is not in my contact list. Okay. Right. Another way of trying to ensure that I don't get or raise an error is instead of using an if statement, to make sure that a contact exists before you get its associated value, you can use the get method. You can use the get method and supply it with a default value to return if the key was not in the dictionary. Okay, this is another way. So, for example, my contact, and then my number equal contact.get, and then this is my contact, and this is the default value. This is the default value. Okay. So now again, if I try to run this, if I put a contact which is not in my contact, what is it going to return? Well, it's going to return this default value, and it will not generate an error. Okay. Any question, ya shabab? How do I add and modify items in a dictionary? Well, it turns out that if you specify a new key, with a value, that will basically do the job of adding the key value pair into the dictionary. Okay. So for example, if you have something like this, we have this dictionary initialized to these 4 key value pairs, and then we add the following key value pair, contact John equals whatever. So this line will add a new contact. So now the contacts will become 5. Okay, the contact will become 5. Right. What if you access a key that is already inside the dictionary and you assign it a value? Well, this constitutes modification of the value associated with that key. Right? So let's run this code and let's see what's happening. So first of all, we see that the contacts were only 4. Now, after we execute this statement, the contacts become 5. Basically, John was added with value 2034847. Right. Then when I try to access John again, changing the phone number from the last 4 digits 4847 becomes 7663. What happened to the list? Well, the only thing that got changed is basically the value associated with John. So this is one way of adding elements into the dictionary. Right. Do you remember were we able to add elements to the list starting from an empty list?
Yes.
Yes. What did we use?
We assign an empty list and then use a for loop.
Use the for loop and the append, صح?
Yes.
And we used the append, right? Well, it turns out that we can also do that in dictionaries, and we will see that in dictionaries we can start with an empty list, and just like what we did here, we just keep adding new key value pairs. Okay, so in this case, there is no need for an append. There is no need for an append function, right? There is no need for an append function. Just specifying a new key with a value will basically append to the list. Okay. Right. So let's. So if we look at this, well, this is what will be generated, a new favorite colors dictionary. Right. If I want to remove a key from a dictionary, then we can use the pop method with the key as the argument. Do you remember the pop? Did we see the pop in list?
Yes.
Yes, we saw the pop in list, right? We saw the pop in list. So, for example, if you want to remove a contact from the list, then you just need to just specify the key and use the pop method. Okay, and use the pop method. Now, the result of this operation is the key value pair that is being removed. Okay, in fact, let me correct myself. The result of this is basically the number of the contact that is being removed. The number of the contact that is being removed, right? So so my contact was removed. Let me change this to show what is contact number. So it was removed, which has number, and then okay. Let me change this so that we don't get an error. Was removed, which has number, and then contact number. Okay. And the current contact contain the following, and then of course \n. This is just to print the whole list again, the whole dictionary again at the end. So let's see if we run this, what will happen, right? So enter the contact name to remove. So let's remove Bob. Okay, let's remove Bob. So now it says here, Bob was removed, which has number 3841212. This is Bob, and this is his phone number, 3841212. Okay, so the pop will return the value associated with the key, and of course the current contacts contain the following. So now Bob was removed from the dictionary. Okay, Shabab? Okay. Right.
So, doctor, if I print the Bob context.bob itself, it will print the number for the.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So if you try to print contact.pop my contact, it will print the value associated with Bob.
Doctor.
Now.
In line 3, should I say that contact number equal, or can I say that just contact.pop? like list?
Well, you can say contact.pop, and the value will not be assigned anywhere. If you don't need that value, you can just say contact.pop and then my contact.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so now let's talk about traversing a dictionary. If you want to, process or do some processing on the dictionary, to access the value associated with a key in the body of the loop, you can use the loop variable with the subscript operator. You can use the loop variable with the subscript operator. So we can use the in when we use in contact. Okay, when we use in contact, then the variable here will be associated with the key. Okay, will be associated with the key. So it will print, the key, and you can access the value by, accessing contacts of key. By accessing contacts of key. So if I try to run this, you will see that, the first value of key was Fred, the second value of key was Mary, the third value of key was Bob, the fourth value of key was Sarah. So it printed, the key and the value. The key and the value. Right. Now, to iterate through the keys in sorted order, you can use the sorted function as part of the loop. You can use the sorted function as part of the loop. So basically, you can specify that you need the keys of the contacts to be sorted. You need the keys of the contacts to be sorted. So instead of for key in contact, you can say for key in sorted contact. Right. So what does this do? This will sort the keys by, this will sort the dictionary by their keys. So what will be the first element, accessed in the dictionary in this case, if I hit run?
Bob, doctor.
Bob, yes. So it will do Bob, and then, Fred, and then Mary, and then Sarah, right? So Bob, Fred, Mary, Sarah. So they have been, ordered by, in alphabetical order. They have been sorted by the keys. They have been sorted by the keys. Okay. Now, we can also iterate over the values of the items instead of the keys using the values method. So instead of, before, we just used contacts. Huh? We just used contacts in order to access, the keys. But if you want to access the values, then just say contact.values. In that case, you will be iterating over the values of the dictionary rather than through the keys, right? Rather than through the keys. So if I run this, basically I will access, this value followed by this value, followed by this value, followed by this value, which are associated with Fred, Mary, Bob, and Sarah. So this is how I can access, these values bypassing, the keys. I'm not worried about the keys. I just want to access the values, and I want to store them in a list. Okay, and I want to store them in a list. As you can see here, they have been stored in a list using the append operator. Okay, using the append operator. So this can be, useful for creating a list that contains all of the phone numbers in our dictionary. Right. This can also be achieved through the list function. Again, this can be achieved through the list function. So if you specify, list, and then if you say contact.values, right? It will basically create exactly the same list. Okay, it will basically create exactly the same list as you can see here. Okay, so this is basically it regarding, regarding dictionaries and, how do we work with dictionaries. And it's now time to move on to another subject, which is the next chapter, which is actually we're going back, chapter 7, that discusses, files and exceptions. Okay. Right. So let me actually share the whole screen because for this part, I will need to access files outside the browser. So let me first unshare and then share the whole window. Okay, is that clear, ya shabab?
Yes, it's clear, Doctor.
Right. Okay. So this is, by the way, chapter 7, sections 1, 2, and 5. What do we hope to learn out of this chapter? Well, at the end of this chapter, you'll be able to read and write text files, process collections of data, and raise and handle exceptions. Right. So let's start with reading and writing text files. Now, to access a file, we must first open it. Okay, we must first open it. Whether we want to access it for reading or for writing, we have to open the file. And when one opens a file, you give it a name. Okay, you give it a name. For example, if you look at this statement here, in file equal open input.txt. Input.txt. Now, when you give the name, you assume that the file is in the same directory that is accessible by your Python interpreter, right? By your Python interpreter. In that case, yes, you can just specify the file name. Okay. However, if the file is sitting in a different directory than the directory that is running the current directory of the Python interpreter, then you need to specify the path. Okay, then you need to specify the directory path. You can also specify whether the file to be opened is for reading or writing. So if I want to open a file for reading, I will put R. What do you think? If you want to guess, if I want to open the file for writing, what should I put there?
W.
W. Okay, W makes sense. So if I run this, this will basically open the or associate, the variable in file with the file handler associated with the input.txt file, which is basically for input. So this statement opens the file for reading, which is indicated by the string R, and returns a file object that is associated with the file input.txt. It's associated with the file input.txt. So it stores, the file object is basically stored in file. When opening a file for reading, the file must exist or an exception is raised. The file must exist or an exception is raised. So if I want to open it for reading, the file must exist beforehand. Okay, the file must exist beforehand. What about if I open the file for writing? Well, we have two cases. One case, if the file is not there, it will basically create a file, which is initially empty. What if the file name is in the directory? Well, it will basically empty its content. If you use the W, to open a file, and that file existed, it will basically erase all its content. Okay, it will erase all its content. So, as we said, if the output file already exists, it is emptied before the new data is written to it. If the file does not exist, an empty file is created. Okay, so all operations for accessing a file are made via the file object. All operations for accessing a file are made via the file object, the out file or the in file, depending on what do you want to do, right? So when you are done processing a file, be sure to close the file using the close method. Okay, using the close method. Why is that? The reason is that if you do not close the file, especially after you have written, to a certain file, some of the data that you thought you have written it might not, be stored in the file because you did not close it. Okay, because you did not close it. So this is a very good practice. You never, open a file without closing it, whether it's for reading or writing. Whether it is for reading or writing, you have to close the file. Okay, you have to close the file. So as we mentioned, if your program exits without closing a file that was opened for writing, some of the output might not be written to the file. Some of the output may not reach, the file. So this is the kind of a summary of the syntax for reading and writing text files. So the in file and the out file, these variables are basically used to store the file object, right? And here you specify the file name, whether it is in the same directory as your Python interpreter's current directory, or if it's in a different directory, you need to specify the whole path. And then the second argument determines the mode of reading, whether you want to read the file for reading R or for writing W. Okay, and then of course you can read and write data, and we will see now how we are going to read data from a file, and make sure then that you run the methods close on the in file and the out file, right? Because if you fail to close an output file, some data may not be, or some data may be lost. Some data may be lost. So let's start with reading a file. Let's start with reading a file. So to read a line of text from a file, call the read line method on the file object that was returned when you opened the file. Call the read line method on the file object that was returned when you opened the file. How is that? Well, basically we will specify the in file, and then we will say dot and then read line. Okay, and then dot and then read line. Okay, right. So when a file is opened, an input marker is positioned at the beginning of the file, and the read line method reads the text starting at the current position and continuing until the new line character is encountered. So for example, what happens when I execute this statement? In file equal open input.text and then for reading. So what will happen is the following. Imagine that this is my file, right? Once I execute this statement, the marker will start basically from the beginning of the file, or the pointer or the marker for reading, right? The marker for reading. Right. Now, what happens when I read the first line, which is in line 3, line 1 equal in file dot read line? It will basically start reading the line until I reach the end of line character, which means that after reading the first line, I will basically go to the second line if I encounter the \n. If I encounter the \n. So let's look at the code. Let's look at the file here, the input.txt file. Okay. This is my input.txt file. Can you see that, ya shabab? This is my input.txt file. So it has two lines. It has flying and it has circuit. It has flying and it has circuit. And flying is followed by an end of line, because, for example, if I start from here and I press the right arrow, right? The right arrow, you will keep going there, right? Now, how do I know that there is an end of line? Well, if I move from this line to the next line, I know there is an end of line. Okay, I know that there is an end of line. Right. Now let's continue. So for circus, CIRCUS, and then if I hit the arrow again, did I go to the next line?
No.
I did not go to the next line. What does that mean? Well, first of all, as you can see, the file finishes. So we have reached the end of file. We have reached the end of file. Second, the second line does not contain an end of line. The second line does not contain an end of line. Right. Remember that now when we process this code. So in file is open input.txt r line 1 equal in file dot read line. So the read line method returns the text that it reads, including the new line character that denotes the end of line. So in the first line, the end of line character will be saved in line 1 or will not be saved in line 1? The end of line character will be saved in line 1 or will not be saved in line 1, the variable line 1.
It will saved in line 1.
It will be saved in line 1. It will be saved in line 1. So now when we print line 1 plus the length of line 1 is the length of line 1. Well, this is the file. What will be the length of line 1? Flying, how many characters in flying?
6.
3, 4, 5, 6. So what will be the length of line 1?
6.
It will not be 6.
7.
It will be 7. نسيت \n. You
Yeah.
forgot the new line. صح? It will be a new line. طيب. What about okay, so now when this is printed, is the word flying and the length of line 1 will be on the same line or on different lines? Yes, شباب, line 1 contains the end of line or does not contain the end of line?
It contains the end of line.
It contains the end of line. So this means that it will be printed. If you want to print the length of line 1, it will go to the next line. Okay, it will go to the next line. طيب. Now line 2. What will be the length of line 2?
I think 6.
6.
It will be 6. ليش مو 7?
Because there is the end of the file.
because there is no end of line. We reach the end of file. Okay, we reach the end of file. So for the second line, it will print 6. Okay, it will print the circuit and it will print 6. طيب. After I read the second line, when I say line 3 in file.read line, what will happen? Now this is something that Python has done a very good job in handling this situation. Simply, it returns the empty string. Simply, it returns the empty string. Now, why is it better than other languages, like, for example, C? Although we will not talk about files in C, in the last couple of weeks when we talk about the C language. But why is it nice? Well, it's nice because it gives you a way to read all the lines of the file until you reach the end of the empty string. So you can keep reading the lines, and the lines would be read as strings, right? You keep reading the lines. Once you read the empty string, that's an indication you have reached the end of file. And if you try to read again, it will again give you the empty string. It will again give you the empty string. It will not give you an error. It will not, raise an exception that you have reached the end of file. Okay, so this is very nice about Python. So let's run this. Now, as you can see, flying and the length of line 1 are in 2 different lines, and it is 7. Circus and the length of line 2 are in the same line because circus did not contain the end of line, and that's why its length is 6. And finally, the length of line 3 is 0 because we have reached the end of file. Okay, because we have, and if I say, line 4 equal in file.read line and print, it will again, print nothing for the string, and it will say that the length is 0. Okay, so the first call to read line returns the string, flying \n. Recall that \n denotes the new line character. If you call read line a second time, it returns the string circus, and there is no \n because we have reached, we did not go to the next line, huh? Because we did not go to the next line, we actually reached the end of file marker. Calling read line again yields the empty string because you have already reached the end of file marker. And if you keep calling read line, it will keep giving you the empty string. It will keep giving you the empty string. Okay, Shabab? Any question? So if I do this again, let's just make sure what my statement was correct. If I do this again, you can see that if I run this, the length of line 3, of course I didn't change line 3, I should have said line 4. The length of the line 3 again is 0 because basically I have reached the end of file. Because I have reached the end of file. واضح يا شباب? Any question? Any question? طيب. This is where we stopped in the other section, but since we have 1 minute, we can maybe reading multiple lines of a file. As you might guess, providing the whenever you reach the end of line, the end of file marker, reaching, it will basically return an empty string. You can use this, while line is not equal the empty string. While line is not equal the empty string, you can basically, read the line. You can basically read the line. But inshallah, we'll do that again, starting day after tomorrow, bismillah. Okay, Shabab? Any question? So let's take the attendance. نعم.
يقول يعطيك العافية دكتور.
الله يعافيك، حياكم الله. طيب، سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك، أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت، أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.